Okay, welcome to another episode. The question today is, could Mary Magdalene have been Jesus's wife? A highly hypothetical type of question. And the reason for this is she appears to be so close to Jesus's family. She's there with Jesus' mother Mary at the crucifixion, and then, according to John, she's the first one early in the morning to go to Jesus' tomb. Let's take a look at John. Again, this is from the Bible Gateway. They've got all kinds of different Bible versions on here. You can look up anything. Okay, John 20, beginning of the chapter. Now on the first day of the week Mary Magdalene came to the tomb early while it was still dark, and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. Okay, then she went and she ran and she told Peter and the other disciple whom Jesus loved. So this mysterious disciple whom Jesus loved, scholars have puzzled over this. Well, it couldn't have been Mary Magdalene, because Mary Magdalene went and told this secret disciple whom Jesus loved. Okay, so moving a little forward in the story, verse 11. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb, and as she wept, she stooped and looked into the tomb. Okay, there are two angels. Let me skip over this a bit. Tell me where they have lain him. They have taken away my Lord, and I don't know where they have laid him. Having said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking? Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. Jesus said to her, Mary. She turned and said to him in Aramaic, Rabboni, which means teacher. And Jesus said to her, Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father, but go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and to your Father, to my God and to your God. Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, I have seen the Lord, and that he had said these things to her. So, the account given by Paul in his letters is in contradiction to this, where Paul seems to think that Jesus first appeared to Peter and then to the other apostles. In John's account, John's gospel, it's Mary Magdalene who first sees the risen Christ. And the whole idea about this, the possibility, even the question of whether Jesus was married or not, or whether it was Mary Magdalene, look at this, he says, do not cling to me. As if, when he said Mary, and then she realized it was Jesus, it's like as if she ran and grabbed onto him or hugged him. It doesn't say that in the text, but Jesus says, do not cling to me. So obviously she was grabbing him or clinging to him. Why would that be the case if they were not, very close? I know it's unheard of to even consider the possibility Jesus could have been married. But let us turn our attention to another passage that's kind of related here. Let's go over to Paul's letter in 1 Corinthians, okay? He's giving a defense of his apostleship. Why would Paul have to be so defensive about his apostleship? In 1 Thessalonians, his earliest letter, that was not an issue. He wasn't defending his apostleship. In fact, he doesn't even say in First Thessalonians, he doesn't say in his first line like he does in his other letters. He usually says, Paul, an apostle, called to be an apostle. But in First Thessalonians, he doesn't even say that in the first line. So why does this become such an issue? In Acts, he would not have qualified to be an apostle, because the person who took Judas's place as the 12th apostle has to fulfill certain requirements. This is in the early part of Acts. The person had to have been with them the entire time of Jesus' ministry, starting from the baptism of John, starting from John the Baptist all the way through Jesus' ministry, and have been a witness to his death and resurrection. That's what qualifies somebody to be an apostle. Paul was not part of the Jesus movement. Paul says he, as a latecomer, he even tried to persecute and destroy the Jesus movement. So, on those grounds, he wouldn't qualify to be an apostle. And neither Paul nor the people in Jerusalem, they never say that they conferred onto him the title of apostleship. Paul does say that they gave him the right hand of fellowship, but not that they called him an apostle. Paul calls himself an apostle. But let's look at what he says here and how this is related to the topic. Am I not free? Am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus our Lord? That doesn't mean seen him in person. That means seen like a vision of the risen Christ, okay? That's what Paul means when he says he has seen the Lord. He describes this in more detail in 1 Corinthians 15 and also in Galatians 1, okay? How the risen Christ appeared to him. Are you not my workmanship in the Lord? If to others I am not an apostle, at least I am to you. Look at the language of this. He's acknowledging other people don't think he's an apostle. So he's defending his apostleship. Let's go on to verse 3. This is my defense to those who would examine me. Do we not have the right to eat and drink? Do we not have the right to take along a believing wife, as do the other apostles and the brothers of the Lord and Cephas? And then he goes on to say that, don't we have the right to earn a living by what we're doing, preaching and ministering? But let's zero in on this part right here. Do we not have a right to take along a believing wife, as do the other apostles and the brothers of the Lord and Cephas? That's Peter, or Cephas in the Greek. So, according to Paul, the other apostles have believing wives, and they traveled, and they came with them when they traveled. That's interesting. So Jesus's apostles were married, or some of them were married. Jesus's brothers also were married. Why wouldn't Jesus also have been married? Okay, even though he's the leader of the group, but in his Jewish context, his Jewish tradition, Jewish family, why wouldn't Jesus have been married also? I'm not saying that he is. Okay, I'm not saying that he was married. I'm not saying Mary Magdalene was his wife. It's just posing this as a question. In the historical context, it could have been. Not saying that it was. It may have been that he was married, or maybe even married to Mary Magdalene, but that's so hypothetical and probably not the case. But it's an interesting question to look at, because Jesus' disciples were married. They had wives that traveled with them. Peter, the brothers of the Lord. And then there's that really peculiar thing about how Mary Magdalene was so close to the family. Why was she so close or intimate with the family? She was there with Jesus' mother Mary at his crucifixion, and then she's the first to show up at the tomb, which you would think would only be somebody very close, or like a disciple that would do that. So interesting questions to think about, and I'll wrap it up with that for today.